Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Hey everyone. I just got back from a walk in the windy fall weather, so I'm going to try to get through this without letting my allergies mess it up too much. I went and voted the other day, and I was thinking about the vote while I was walking today and how what's going on with our voting and powerlifting actually have quite a bit of similarities. And I thought I would just talk about a couple of those today. It probably sounds crazy, but I have this tendency to relate powerlifting to life and vice versa. And I'll start with the people that I know that say their vote doesn't count. I really disagree with that. I think it's more a matter of your vote doesn't count to the extent that you want it to count. And I kind of get that because I do question with today's technology why it can't be one person, one vote, and then you just count up all the votes. But I also understand enough about the Electoral College and why it started and why we have it and trying to give each state equal effect into it, minus how many people they have in the state. But either way you look at it, your vote does count. It just might not count as much as you want it to. And if you don't vote, then it doesn't count. That's the only way it doesn't count is if you don't vote, because there's no vote. If you vote, it counts. And I was reading a story the other day about the Amish and how the Amish normally don't vote. But in Pennsylvania, somebody took the time to figure out that, hey, if all the Amish voted and they voted one way, it actually would have changed the overall vote of the state, which would have changed the overall Electoral College. And I thought, there you go. Like, every one of the Amish people that don't vote, it actually matters. It could have changed an election, and it could affect the outcome of this coming election. So even if it seems like it's one little thing, it's your one little vote, and you feel like it doesn't count, it does count. Just not to the extent that you want. Now, if I was talking powerlifting, there's a lot of people like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It won't matter if I don't do that. And then there's lifters, quite a few lifters that will end up just doing the things that they like to do. And they don't do the stuff that would help them. And I would say the internet, social media, there's the people out there that want to make you think the smallest things do count. Hey, if you take vitamin D, all these things are going to work out and all these things are going to happen. And like, bam, if you, I can't remember the name of the new weight loss drug. The one they're finding out, it actually has a bunch of negative side effects. But you will lose weight on it. It's like, this is it. This is the pill. This is all you need. This is what you need to do. Or like the guys are like, this is the exercise to build big biceps. And it's like, okay, they probably all have a place, but how much are they going to impact my overall? And is it worth me spending time to do that? Where I think I think it's worth the time to go vote. If you tried to do every little thing that everybody says you need, you probably wouldn't have enough time in the day. So you got to kind of find the things that are going to help you. But in doing that, you can't just say, oh, that one's not going to make a difference. I mean, you have to know, you got to figure out, you got to try it. Is it going to make a difference? How much of a difference is it going to make? And what happens if I don't do it? Maybe you're not doing it now. And remember again that that's going to change too. So you're only as strong as your weakest link. So somebody says, hey, this tricep exercise, man, it's a great tricep exercise. Man, I used it to build a massive bench. So for me, that would be like dumbbell rollback extensions. I love dumbbell rollback extensions. I was doing crazy heavy dumbbell rollback extensions when my bench was at its highest. But I also knew that as I was building my bench, if my back is my weak point, I can do all the tricep work in the world, and my bench isn't going to go up until my back is strong enough to do more weight. Sure, my triceps might be able to bench 900 pounds, but if my back can only hold 750, I'm only going to bench 750. So I think it's kind of the same thing with the vote and with training. You really got to take the time. Like, don't just write stuff off because you don't think it's going to matter or you don't think it's important. Like, spend a little time to like think about it and go, okay, what is important? What do I have time to do? How much is this going to affect me? Like, hey, I want to drop weight, so I need to do a lot more cardio, so I'm going to sleep less. Well, you're passing up sleep, which is one of the keys to actually leaning out to do more cardio. So are you doing more damage than good? Or another one I always wonder about too is tren. Tren, if you take enough, is notorious for trensomnia. Like, you'll just stop sleeping altogether. And I go, okay, you're taking tren, which is going to help you get you stronger, but it's wrecking your sleep, which is like one of the greatest things you can do for your strength. So are you taking this one and losing? Are you losing more by not sleeping than the trend is giving you or not? And I guess that's something each guy has to weigh out and decide for themselves. But I would rather get the sleep than be on a boatload of trend. But a lot of guys have done crazy cool shit on a lot of trends. So, that's back down to the individual. One of the other things I was looking at or thinking about, and I wrote a couple things down here in my phone. A lot of people don't vote because they don't have the time, or they're like, whatever, I can't think about that, or I didn't have time to look up to really look into the candidates or this or that. And I get that. I come from a blue collar family. There's a lot of people out there like, man, I'm just trying to keep my head above water, paying my house, paying my truck, raising my family. Like, I'm working 2 jobs or I'm working overtime. And, that's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater type thing. Like, okay, yeah, you have to work and you have to do this, but you're ignoring the people that are controlling the government and the economy. And if you get the wrong people in, it's going to get worse. If you get the right people in, it's hopefully going to get better, or it could just stay the same. And maybe your vote didn't mean any much because the economy is your big thing and it's going to not change. Odds are, though, there is going to be some change for the positive or the negative, depending on who's in. And so that's kind of one of the things where you're going, I don't have time for that. It's not worth it. I'm not going to do it. But in the end, it actually is worth it. And that's something we need to look at. And it's like, all right, I'm struggling to get all these things done. Maybe I need to find some time to look into the candidates, to try and look and see the truth and take the time to be able to go vote. And I can say for me, like this, I voted early this year. Man, it was like, I couldn't have been there like 10 or 15 minutes, maybe. They ran it really smooth. I got in, I got out. I had no complications with anything. It went really smooth. That was cool. So the same theory, again, goes to powerlifting. So there's one thing I see a lot is powerlifters that don't want to work on their flexibility and mobility. I don't got time for that. I got to train heavy and I'm sleeping and eating the rest of the time. And I'm like, yeah, but if you like just took a little bit, maybe take a little bit of time away from the training, put that into your flexibility and mobility, you're going to lift more weight. Because like most strength sports aren't really about just strength. They're about strength and knowing your sport. Like the strongest guys don't win. The strongest, smartest guys win. Because every event from throwing to strongman to powerlifting, they all have technique. They all involve mobility. If you don't work on those things, you're hurting yourself. I see lots of guys that lift, and even guys that are doing really good. But I'm like, dude, you're suffering. You can't retract your scaps, so you're making your bench movement longer than possible. You're not able to get as much tricep into it because your shoulders aren't in the optimum position because you're not flexible enough to get there. So you actually cannot lift as much weight as you're capable of because of your mobility. Honestly, that's kind of great because that allowed me to place a little better in my powerlifting because I don't have the great genetics and I don't have, that natural ability. And I was willing to do all the work. Really willing to do the work. Like I did what needed to be done no matter how much I hated it. Part of that being stretching and mobility, because honestly, it's boring as hell. But it has a major effect, and that's why I'm 52. And other than a back injury that's healing up, which didn't come from lifting, I'm very mobile. I can run around with my nieces. I can throw a baseball. I have no shoulder impingements, no shoulder issues, no elbow issues, no knee issues, no hip issues, all because I did those things. So when we're saying we don't have time, it's like we need to kind of take a step back and go, okay, is this something I need to find time for? Is this something I need to move around? And sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're in a situation where it's like, no, this can't. I'm not going to be able to do this. Period. And that's okay. I mean, life happens. Shit happens. But a lot of times there is ways that we could work it if we were willing to fit it in and make a few changes. And that means usually doing things we don't necessarily want to do, because if we wanted to do them, we'd probably be doing them already. And just realizing what really in the long run, what's going to make the biggest difference. So you could be going, oh, screw it, I'm not voting, man. I ain't got time for that. Okay, well, that could possibly make the next 4 years way harder on you. Where if you did find some time and you did go vote, it could make it easier on you. So you got to kind of think 4 years down the road. And with strength, strength is such a, I think it was Chuck Vogelpohl once said, powerlifting is a sport of attrition. And it really is. Like, kind of how long can you last? How long can you keep going? Because it takes a long time to build really solid strength. So the better you are at keeping away injuries, the longer you can stay healthy, the more time you have to get strong and to get crazy strong. So you got to kind of think long term. And that's something that hits a lot of newbie or mid-level powerlifters, is they weren't prepared for the time it's going to take, because a lot of times they look at lifters and they don't understand how long they've been doing it, how long it took them to get to that position. So I think in that aspect, they're similar again, and it's about really going, what is the most important? What do I want to do? And again, I'm not trying to say you got to do this or do that, and I'm not saying one way is right or wrong. This is my experience, is that you have to make these decisions based on what you want. And there was a time in my life where I just wanted to lift heavy all the time. And I trained 5-6 days a week, killed myself, didn't get that strong, but I trained my ass off. And that was what I wanted to do. I wanted that daily rush. I wanted that daily train. And it worked at the time. But then when I decided I wanted to be good and I wanted to go to the competitions and show what I was capable of, I had to change, because that plan was not going to get me there. Otherwise, I would have already been there. One of the other things, and this is when I was voting the other day, because I've been trying to watch a lot of stuff, and I think the media is just insane, and social media is insane, and everybody's just lying their ass off about everything. But I thought, when you really break it down and you go, hey, you go to one party and you go, hey, what do you really want? Like, what's your goals out of the election? And I go, just general goals, not the specifics, but generally. I think they're going to go, we want, free speech. We want people to be able to have successful lives. We want people to be able to financially stable. We want people to do this. We want people to do that. And then you go to the other side and ask them the same question. Sorry, allergies. I really feel like you're going to get similar answers, if not the exact same answers. And that seems funny to me that, okay, you guys want the same thing, but you differ on how you want to get there. So instead of coming at each other worrying about the differences, why don't we sit down with each other and start with the common ground? Hey, we both want freedom of speech. Okay, cool. Let's awesome. I agree. I want freedom of speech too. So how and then sit down and go, how are we going to get here? How are we going to accomplish this? And just be able to listen to each other's sides and discuss it. Instead of coming at each other like you want the opposite shit, you want the same shit. You just have way different opinions on how to get there. And that also brings me to a point of like, sometimes the compromise is actually the best route. Like sometimes what we think is best as a person might be a little too far on one side, where if we were to sit down and talk, we might find a compromise that actually ends up being the best, even for us as the individual. And again, that's a I can't say that for sure, and it's not always going to be that way. Just saying it's a possibility. Now, when I was thinking about this, the thought that kept popping into my head is going to competitions once I hit that level where I'm lifting with the best of the best in the world. How we would go to meets a day or two early, and you would always find like there'd be a group in somebody's room or there'd be a group in the lobby, and you're just sitting around and talking. And for those of you that don't know, if you take the top 20 powerlifters in the world, they all train differently. There isn't one set way that they're all training. Like there isn't one magic program. You might have some guys doing conjugates, some guys doing linear, some guys doing maybe a 5-3-1 or something. And you may find some common things that some guys do. But even the guys that are doing conjugate are kind of doing conjugate a little bit different. And so what you find is like basically people are doing what they need to do. But the interesting part to me is it's like, okay, you're sitting here in a room with 20 of the greatest lifters there, and they're sitting around and they can talk training, and there's no fighting and there's no bickering. They're just kind of throwing out ideas, and nobody gets offended if they don't like that idea or if it doesn't work. It's like, hey man, I was getting stuck here on the bench. Like, what do you guys do? And guys are like, do this. And I'm like, maybe it's like, oh yeah, I tried that. It didn't work, but you know what? I'm going to keep it in the back of my head because that might be the key next time I get stuck. Here's what I have tried. And somebody's like, have you tried this? And I'm like, no, but I'm going to try that. That actually makes a lot of sense, And guys are going, well, why did you do that? Oh, that's cool. Like, here's why I did this, and guys have reasons and they explain it. And I tell people all the time, all the knowledge I have, it didn't come from me. I like to think that, some things I came up with or some things I put together in a certain way. I even had one of my kind of mentor people was like, you need to write a program. And I go, but I'm just doing all this different shit that I learned from everyone else. And he's like, yeah, but you did it your way. It's your thing. It's your style. But, I have all these little tidbits that I learned from all these great lifters. Like all these legendary lifters. You can hang out with a guy, go to lunch with him, maybe coach at a seminar with him, and you just pick up these 2 or 3 little things here. And then you pick up a thing here, and you pick up a thing here. And then with my team, the guys on my team all came in and I kind of taught them what we're doing. I taught them about technique. And then I wanted them to let's take it further, man. I want you to understand it. And then I want you to expand on it. So the stuff that I came up with, it wasn't me, it was my team. We would literally have conversations about exercises, about training programs. If somebody was stuck, we would literally sit down after training and be like, hey man, Scott's been stuck here for a while. What do we need to do to get his bench going again? Or, hey, my squat's kind of petering out right here. What's going on? Like, how can we get that going again? You know, what's the weak point? Is it positioning? Is it mobility? And so there's all these different minds coming in. And I would say I learned more from other people. Well, obviously I learned more from other people than I ever did on my own. You know, I do like to think about it a lot, and I even dream about it. To the point that my partners, I would come in sometimes smiling and they're like, oh crap, what'd you dream of last night? And I'm like, I got this great exercise I want to try. Most of them sucked, but a few of them turned out to be really good. So, you know, it's just being open-minded enough to listen to people and to take their advice. And even if it's not something you necessarily want to do right then, or maybe it doesn't work for you, but it might work for you later. Or maybe I remember one time, I started powerlifting doing a style called linear periodization, which is just like a gradual buildup. And I decided after a while, I'm like, I don't like this, man. It's not working for me. I know these other guys are doing it. It's not my thing. And I ended up learning conjugate, which I do really like. But I got the chance to sit down with one of he's the GOAT. I got the chance to have lunch with him one time. And I went and I asked him, I go, hey man, I used to do linear periodization and I just never, I could never get it to go right. Like what? And I know you did linear periodization almost your whole career. Like what could I have been doing wrong? Or like how did you run it? And it was funny because, and this was kind of earlier, middle of my career probably. It was funny because after that lunch I went, it wasn't linear periodization that was wrong. It was the way I ran linear periodization that was wrong. Like I was making some mistakes because that's what I thought you did, but it wasn't what the best are doing with it. And that's kind of that was kind of the process of learning that, listen, everything has its place and everything might work for somebody. So when it comes to right and wrong, there's really a lot of gray in there that I hate saying there's gray in there, but there is. Are you executing it right? Is it for you? Like, are you tweaking it the way you need to tweak it? And I kind of was thinking about those two things, and I thought, damn, you know, if like these politicians would get together like powerlifters do, we could probably get a lot of shit done. You know, if people that are voting and talking about politics could approach it the way these top powerlifters approach it, probably get a lot more done. And I think one of the reasons we keep seeing powerlifting getting better and better and better, and there are some unbelievable younger lifters out there right now that are just mind-boggling strong. And I think it's because of that information just keeps getting talked about and getting handed down. And you know, the older guys such as myself are still out trying to help people, trying to pass on what worked for us. And I'm one of those guys where I don't care. I would go up to Kabuki Strength to visit Chris, and he had a couple young guys in there like Brandon and Kyle. And just watching these guys, they're young kids. I'm just watching these guys, and I'm like, man, I need to listen to these guys. Like these kids are smart. I don't care if they're new to the sport. I'm fairly new. Like I don't care their age. I don't care if they're new. Like these guys know some shit, and I want to know it. So I was more than willing to not be this old time decent lifter, but just go, hey, I'm here. What do you help me explain that? And I remember at one point I was looking into the BFR, and even Cass is like, hey, I'll run you through a session tomorrow with that if you want. And I'm like, oh, cool, awesome. Like I like smart is smart. I don't care. And that's how you learn, is to approach things with that open mind and listening to people. asking questions. And I think if we did that, it would help this whole two-party separation system, and maybe we can come together on all of that stuff. One other thought was, it's so hard to, I was thinking about the vote and thinking about all the ads and all the shit that gets said back and forth, and I'm talking both sides. I don't care which side. They're both lying. They're both embellishing shit. It's just frustrating. Like, just tell the truth. The news medias, you got one news media on one side, one on the other side. There's a couple that I think are kind of down the middle, but it's always hard to tell. And I think the fitness industry has gotten like that a little bit too, with social media and marketing, and it's kind of always been that way. I can't remember the one in college. No, more like high school. There was the big one they sold at GNC, like Cybergenics or something like that. And I fell for it. I ended up spending a bunch of money and bought like a cycle of that crap, which didn't work at all. Then I learned that, marketing. But there's so much of that going on now in the political area and in fitness that it gets really hard to kind of weed through it, especially for people that are new. I think it's hard to go in there and go, wait a minute, this guy's saying this guy's saying this guy's doing this. Even when I was down at the Olympia, I ended up helping some powerlifters upstairs, which was one federation. Then when I went downstairs, I'm like, here's a federation right next to another federation, right next to another federation, right next to another federation. And I'm like, I wonder what people who don't know powerlifting, what they think when they walk down here. Like, why are these guys all, they're doing kind of the same lifts. Why are they all doing it differently? And what's that person wearing and what's that person not wearing? And I just kind of thought that seems like it's kind of watering it down a little bit, and confusing people. But what I'm hoping is that people will use more logic and just see, does this make sense? Why is this happening? And then ask some questions and try to figure it out before you just make a judgment on it. I think there's always been the division between raw, single ply, double ply, and now we have like unlimited, or multiply, and now we have unlimited. And I think that's fine. I see it like drag racing. I think there's room for all of those, but we could do a better job of like getting the judging more equal, understanding the differences between those, and maybe help people that are coming into powerlifting to understand them, which I think people do. I think people that start doing meets and start competing, it's easier for them to kind of figure it out and see what's going on. But for even on people on the outside, I want the sport to grow, so I'd like to see more people get into it and get some of the enjoyment and education I got out of it anyway. And then you go on social media and there's all this different stuff, and everybody's saying, do this, do that, squat this way, bench that way. You need to use this machine. You need to do this exercise. You need to do this program. And it just gets, I could see where it gets really confusing for people. But we all have logic. We all have common sense if we're willing to actually use it. I think a lot of people don't. They just see things and go by their emotions these days instead of seeing it and going, even if you have an emotion, go, wait a minute, what? I don't know. What is this? Let me look into this. And just figure it out. And with that common sense, understand that there's people out there that are trying to sell you something. And there's people out there that want to just help you and make a living probably. And there's people that are out there who want to make a living. And if it helps you, there's kind of a difference. I want to help people, and making a living would be a byproduct of that. Or I want to make a living, and if you get help, that's a byproduct of me making a living. And there's a difference between those two. And it's funny because I'll see, when I go through Instagram, I'll see these really intelligent, really smart guys that just want to help people, have hardly any followers. And I see these guys that are just out there to make a buck who have tons of followers. And that's just kind of sad to me, but that's part of life. But I think if we use that logic and we go, wait a minute, like that new drug, I can't think of the name of it, the weight loss drug. It's like, okay, if there's a drug that just helps me lose weight like that, yeah, there's probably something up. There's probably something that's not right in there. And you probably shouldn't do it. And that's just common sense. And so if somebody's telling you this one exercise is going to fix it, or this one supplement's going to fix everything, or this one that, they're like, dude, nah, I think you're full of shit. And if we use that logic and start there, it's going to be a whole lot easier to weed through all the shit. And the same thing with the you have all the trolls out there. They're trolls and they're negative because that's probably who they are. And they're trying to play off your emotions and your feelings, and I think a lot of them will actually watch your page for a while, or you watch your information for a while, figure out what triggers you, and then they're going to go after it. And that again is the same thing with the political people. They put a lot of money and a lot of studying in to hit you in the feelings and hope that you're not going to be a smart, logical person, but you're going to run with those feelings. Instead of backing up and going, wait a minute, before I say something stupid or before I do something stupid or overreact, let me calm down, get my feelings in check, and use my brain. And I think if we do that, that's going to help make a lot of things better. But anyway, that's my little comparison of voting and powerlifting. I hope that everybody goes out and votes. I don't care which way you vote. It's your right. It's your say. Maybe it doesn't count the way you want it to, but it still counts. So I hope that you'll take the time to go vote. My experience was if you vote early, it's pretty easy. I think the mail-in votes are pretty easy. I personally like to do it in person, which is why I went early. I got in and out. I didn't have to wait that long. The area I vote at is actually an area I walk by. And the first couple of days, the lines were pretty long. But after that, they've been really steady throughout the day. So I don't think anybody's really having to wait long. They're doing a good job getting people through. I can't say that it's that way everywhere. Just that was my experience. So go vote. You put your say in, and we're going to see what happens, just like we always do. Somehow we always get through. But I think it is important. I think it's a right. I think it's important to our country and our society. And that's about it. Hopefully everybody's doing good. I hope everybody had a great weekend, and I'm out.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit couragebarbell.com. Until next time.